And when did you marry?
In 1981.
And where did that occur?
Also in Warren, Ohio.
Now, at the time that you met Cindy, were you working as a law enforcement officer then?
Yes, sir, I was.
And in what capacity were you working when you two first met and began to see each other?
I was working as an undercover drug agent with the Sheriff's Department, where I was employed.
In your time with the Sheriff's Office, could you just describe for us what different positions you held or responsibilities you had?
Well, I had a brief stint as considered an auxiliary officer. I was immediately asked to become a full-time officer, which I did. I was in 2 years road patrol. I advanced pretty quickly to become a detective, and I was working at different times in auto theft. I mean, it was a lot of different things, and homicide. I did a lot of different varied things as a detective.
How big an agency was the Sheriff's Department? Well, is it Warren, Ohio Sheriff's Department, or?
It's called the Trumbull County Sheriff's Department.
Trumbull County Sheriff's Department. How big a Sheriff's Department is that?
At the time that I was employed there, we had a road patrol, or at least a full-size staff of about 110, maybe 112 sheriff deputies.
And how about the detective divisions? How many detectives did you all have?
Somewhere in the neighborhood about 10 to 12. It wasn't a real large agency, but I would say roughly about that.
So during your period as a detective, did you investigate a number of different kinds of crimes?
Right. I originally started out with, as far as, like it says, the auto theft and also like break-ins and things like that. But from time to time, you would be brought into other realms of investigation.
And occasionally even homicide cases, I think you just said.
That could happen from time to time, yes, depending on what was needed and the number of staff that can be utilized.
Now, during your marriage, were you blessed with children?
Yes, fortunate enough to have 2 children with Cindy.
Okay. And the oldest, could you tell us the name and gender of that child?
My oldest is my son, Lee. He is going to be 29 years old this year.
And what year was he born?
In 1982.
And how about your daughter?
Casey, which she's a female. She was born in 1986, and so now she's 25.
Now, did there come a time during the time you lived in Ohio when you got out of law enforcement and got into another line of work?
I got out of law enforcement for 2 reasons. My father had asked me to come back into a family-established car business. And after numerous incidents that occurred within the Sheriff's Department through being hurt on the job, different other things made me change my mind to get out of law enforcement and go back into a family business. That I know, number one, would be more stable. I would be able to provide more for my family.
Now, were you still working as a law enforcement officer when Casey was born, or did that happen during your second career?
Let me see. Casey was born after I had left the Sheriff's Department.
And you said you went into a family business. What type of family business was that?
My father started a automobile agency back in 1947, so he had been in the business for numerous years.
Did there come a point in time when, so you did go to work for your father then?
Yes.
Did there come a point in time when your father left the business or you left his business?
Well, my father was sort of in like a semi-retirement when I joined him in 1984. And shortly thereafter, we had some incidents occur between him and I. We decided to part ways. And I believe that was in 1987. I'm roughly thinking about that was probably the time.
And did you decide to basically go out on your own in that same type of business?
Right. I started to start my own automobile agency, a small used car dealership, and provide for my family, yes.
Now, when Casey was born, were you still working for your dad or were you on your own at that point?
Casey had just been born, and it was like about a year after Casey had been born that I went out on my own, or I started another business.
Now, at some point, did you and your wife decide to leave Ohio, where you had grown and lived, and move to Florida?
Yes, we decided for a lot of reasons. Number one, my parents had retired here in Florida. Cindy's parents also had retired in Florida. And through my job, or not job, but the company that I had established was suffering financially. Just a lot of different reasons came into play for us to decide, well, the children were young enough. why not go to Florida? I mean, that's somewhere where both sets of grandparents were at. Fresh start. Give us just another opportunity to start over.
Now, during your, pardon me, during your marriage through the birth of your children, did your wife Cindy continue to work?
Cindy she started working part-time when Lee was first born to provide for him and be there for him. And she started working full-time, and I know she took some time off a little bit when Casey was born. And she still worked, I can't remember the exact many of hours she'd have been working during the week, something like that, but it wasn't a lot. She took time to help raise our children.
Now, about what were the ages of your children when you all moved to Florida?
Lee was just shy of being 7 years old, and Casey was just 3 years old.
When you got here to Florida, did Cindy go to work in her profession?
Pretty much immediately. She was hired by a orthopedic clinic in Winter Park, and it took me about 3 months before I was employed.
Had you considered going into law enforcement when you got to Florida?
I did go down to the Orlando Police Department and look into being hired by them, and because of having that law enforcement background, I thought it would be an easier chance for me to get reestablished and start having pretty much an income right away.
And did you decide not to pursue that?
Right after thinking about some of the drawbacks of law enforcement and how telling it can be and hard, it's a very hard line of work to adhere to every single day. It's very demanding.
All right. And was your wife part of that decision-making process?
All right.
Going back in?
I apologize. Yes, she didn't want me to go back in law enforcement because she's seen what could potentially happen. I mean, you could be going to work one day and not come home the next. It's a very tough position, very profession.
At some point, did you get into the private security field?
Yes, I was hired by the city of Orlando and started working at what was considered the Centralplex at the time, with the Orlando Arena, Bob Carr. What was that?
And in the years leading up to the events we're going to discuss, did you work in that field pretty consistently?
Pretty consistently. It's unfortunate that from time to time you lose a position or you have a chance to move on somewhere along and you make some decisions to go into another line of work or get back into something that you know. And yes, I did some more security work, yes, over the years.
And did Cindy continue to work in her nursing profession?
Yes, Cindy has been very fortunate. She's only had 2 positions of employment since we've been here all these years.
Now, did there come a point in time when you learned that your daughter was pregnant?
Yes, I did. I think it was like May or June of 2005.
How did you learn that she was pregnant?
My daughter and my wife set me down in our living room and said they had something to tell me. And first hearing about it, extremely excited to be a grandfather, to see my daughter be a mother, but also concerns about, how she's going to raise this child because she's a single mom. I never really thought too much about who the father could be. That was a discussion I wanted to have maybe a little bit later. I wanted my daughter first to be happy, to get through the pregnancy fine, to enjoy that special time of becoming a mother that I thought was very important.
Now, you kind of touched on this a little bit. At the time that you learned of the pregnancy, your daughter was not married at the time. As far as was she?
Yeah, Casey's never been married.
All right. At the time that you learned of the pregnancy, was she involved with someone where you would sort of assume that person was the father?
Well, I really wasn't sure if Casey, I know Casey had dated at different times over the years, but I really wasn't sure about who she was maybe seeing on a more serious basis or anything like that. No, sir.
So how did you and your wife begin to prepare for the arrival of a grandchild?
Oh, just doing everything we can to make Casey's life as easy as possible for our grandchild. Getting a chance to go to different times when she was going to be examined. Went through the ultrasound.
Did you go?
Oh, absolutely, I did. And when I got a chance to see that it was considered, I think it's called a pancake, I think it's the term, or something like that, of when you can see it's going to be a girl.
Okay.
Maybe that's not the proper terminology, but I was very excited. I mean, if having a grandson would have been terrific, but just knowing that she was going to be a mother and us be grandparents, it wouldn't have mattered. She could have had 3 or 4 children at once. It would have been fine with me. I just was excited.
At the time that you learned of the pregnancy, was Casey living under your roof?
Casey has always lived with us, yes.
Now, was she in school at that time? The time you learned of the pregnancy? Or had she already finished high school?
She already had finished high school.
To your knowledge, at that point, was she working?
She was working for a company called Color Vision, which is a subcontractor for Universal Studios.
Was it your understanding that that was one of those companies that take your picture when you walk in the front door and then offer to sell it to you
Yes,
later, that kind of thing?
yes.
All right. So during your preparations for this, was there any question among the 3 of you as to where Casey and your grandchild would live after she was born?
No, I mean, we opened up, she's always lived at home, and we thought that would be not thought, but we knew that having Kaylee with us, or knowing that our grandchild could live with us until Casey got more established, better on her own, possibly job promotion or whatever it might be, she would stay with us until the time she felt that she wanted to leave.
Now, you mentioned home. Where was home?
Home is 4937 Hope Spring Drive, where we've lived since 1989.
Since when?
Since 1989.
89. And was that a house that you all purchased? Did you purchase it actually before you moved to Florida or sort of early on?
Cindy had came down to Florida to see her parents, and when we decided we were going to be moving down here because of my work at the time and through other things, I couldn't get away. Cindy basically came down and looked the area over, found a realtor, found a home, and what they say, the rest is sort of history. That's the home we settled on.
And is this a home in which you raised your children and were intending to help raise Kaylee?
Oh, yes.
Could we show the witness State's Exhibit AN for identification? If you'll look at the screen for a moment. Do you recognize the photograph that we've identified, State's Exhibit AN for identification?
That is our home at Hope Spring Drive, 4937.
That's the one you've described to us where your children were raised and
Yes.
where Kaylee was to be raised. This time, Your Honor, State would move into evidence State's Exhibit AN for identification.
What says the defense? There being no objections, it will be received in evidence as State's Exhibit numbered.
And may I publish, Your Honor?
You may publish.
Now, this, during the time that you were assisting with the pregnancy and waiting for your grandchild to come around, did Casey continue to work?
Casey worked up until I think it might have been about at least 2 or 3 weeks prior to Kaylee being born. I might be off maybe a week or so, but at least it's in that short time period.
Tell us about Kaylee's birth. Where were you when you found out? I'll try and help you with this. Where were you when you found out that it was time?
We were, Cindy, Casey, and I were all at home. And Casey had been starting to become a little bit ill, or she was showing signs of possible labor. I mean, she was throwing up. You know, she had some other small issues that made us think, okay, maybe this is something that's going on. That's something we need to look into and get her some assistance. So we took her up to the hospital, and I think in a few short hours, you know, the doctor was called in, her pediatrician, and
You mean her obstetrician?
obstetrician. I'm sorry, on my
That's okay.
obstetrician, yes, and the lady helped her bring Kaylee into the world.
Were you actually there in the delivery room, or did you have to wait outside?
Oh, I was in the delivery room. I was in the delivery room for my own 2 children, but also being there for Kaylee, which was, to me, not only amazing, but also embarrassing to a point.
Sure.
And if I might say that there's sometimes in your life as a father there's some things of your child you don't want to see again, growing up. But you know something, it's just an experience that it's hard to put into words. It's just how elated you are and how happy you are to see your own child give birth to another child. It's just amazing.
And was the birth, Kaylee okay?
Kaylee was fine. I mean, there was a little complication here or there, but it wasn't anything that the doctor couldn't take care of, because the doctor was right there the whole time, and other nurses and things like that. So it was well taken care of.
Now, during the pregnancy, at some point, was the subject broached about who the father of Kaylee was or was thought to be?
I can't remember if we exactly talked about it prior to just Kaylee being born or right after, but I know then it was brought up because, yeah, I wanted to know, because I feel it takes two to make this child, and this father needs to be made aware of that he's going to be a father and who he could possibly be. And, you know, it'd be great to meet him and see what his obligation would be. And I felt whoever the father's needs to have an obligation for birth of his child.
Did you have an occasion then to meet the person that, at least at that point, was thought to be the father?
There was a name brought up that Casey believed could have been the father. All I remember is the last name was Baker, I believe, and that was about it. But if I can take another step forward,
Sure.
Casey also had been seeing another gentleman who had been employed at Universal Studios by the name of Jesse, that I got to understand and get to know that he could have also been the father. So he was, you know, one of
Okay.
two guys possibly.
Now, when did you first meet Jesse?
I met Jesse for the very first time on the day that Kaylee was born. That had been August 9th. of
How did that
2005.
go?
Not very well, truthfully. I mean, I was elated to be there to see my daughter, to see my granddaughter, but Jesse did not make the best first impression with me.
Now, after Kaylee was born, did she and Casey return to your home?
Yes, I think it could have been the second day or maybe third day. I think it was the second day.
And did Jesse become, at least initially, part of sort of the family group with Kaylee as an infant?
Right. Jesse, we pretty much opened up our arms to him and welcomed him in and wanted to get to know him more. And just, you know, if he was the father, I would just be happy and elated to get a chance to know him and see what his dynamic was going to be as far as how he was going to take care of Kaylee and Casey, or at least help take care of them.
Did there come a point when it was learned through certain scientific testing that Jesse was in fact not the father of Kaylee?
Right. I'm not sure about how long after Kaylee had gotten home, Casey and Kaylee had gotten home, that Jesse went and got a paternity test done.
As Kaylee grew, what was your role in her upbringing, in her life?
I'm just her grandfather. I mean, I probably acted sometimes maybe like as a father with her because I was around her every day or nearly every single day. And to me, that was pretty awesome to have not only my daughter there, but also to have my granddaughter to be around. That's just, you know, on the scale of 1 to 10, you have to give that probably a 20 or better, because it's double the excitement of
Now,
life.
what role did Cindy take in raising Kaylee?
Oh, just being a great grandmother. I mean, helping any way she could, help babysit from time, or, you know, take care of Kaylee from time to time, same way as I did. I mean, Cindy did it more frequently than I did because of my work schedule, but to be a fantastic grandmother, help provide for Kaylee in any way that she could or I could.
As Kaylee began to grow and be able to speak, did she have names for you and Cindy and other members of the family?
Well, Kaylee started calling me JoJo, and I know how probably JoJo came about, because my daughter Casey used to call me Papa Joe, and that happened to be through another friend of hers that we just became very close with over the years. But JoJo was just probably easy for Kaylee to say better than Grandpa, or grandfather or something.
So you were JoJo.
I was JoJo.
How about Cindy? How did Casey?
Cindy became Cece, or possibly Grammy sometimes, but mostly it was Cece.
Now, taking us now up into 2008, the winter, spring, early months of 2008. Tell us how Kaylee had developed. In other words, what could she do? How advanced was she physically, mentally, et cetera?
Well, not only I'm just a bragging grandfather,
Sure.
but
We'll take it with a grain of salt.
she was a very vocal child. I mean, she could put a lot of words together. She could. We have a remote on our TV. She learns how to do that. There was another little button she could push on the TV to get it to change channels, which I thought was amazing. She could turn on the VCR, put her own DVDs in. Oh my gosh, she knew to go inside of our pantry area and get the plastic jar of peanut butter. We had the small one, and go get herself a spoon, have her come over and ask you to open it up so she could have a spoonful of peanut butter. God, puzzles to go together, the way she'd bring crayons to you to color every day and make Play-Doh little things for herself. I mean, you name it, she could do it. And I knew from working with her or from us doing things with her, she was a very bright child. You would sing a song with her once, she could sing it next time with you, which to me was just amazing.
So in terms of physical dexterity, she was able to open drawers, open doors, things of that sort.
Oh, right. There would be no thing that she couldn't accomplish. I mean, we seen that. We put the proper security plastic knobs on doorknobs and stuff like that because, yeah, she could open things up for her age. She was really something.
Now, in the early summer, late spring, early summer of 2008, did you believe that your daughter was employed?
That's sort of a two-part answer for me.
Sure.
Yes and no.
Okay. Explain that for us, will you?
I always wanted to give my daughter the benefit of the doubt of working and providing for her own daughter because she was a single mom. But at different times, and I would question about her money or things like that, how she was providing for Kaylee.
Okay, let me stop you for a second because I don't want to go too far afield of this, but what was it that she told you about her employment, let's say in May and June of 2008? What was it that she told you about?
Well, that she was still employed by Color Vision. She's moving on as an event planner, I believe, through Universal Studios at the time, but also she was starting to work a part-time job at Sports Authority, not too far away from our home.
And as far as the Universal Studios job, did you believe that she was actually working there in May and June of 2008?
I was wanting to believe that she was working there, yes, because, I mean, she still had a Universal ID. Every time I would be talking to her and asking her prior to me going to work, are you going to work today? Yeah, I've got something going on at Universal. I'm doing this event planning and things like that. So, yeah, I was believing and hoping that she was working there, yes.
Did she have a routine reflective of someone going to work?
Pretty much so. I mean, I know she worked a lot more like a early afternoon to an early evening type shift. You just went at 1 or 2 o'clock and I'd come home till like 8 or 10 o'clock at night. I mean, it could vary. I know working in event planning that she had explained to us, sometimes you could work just during that particular event that you're scheduled for, which could be 4 or 6 hours long. So I just took it as she was there for that period of time, yes.
What did she tell you? Well, at this point in time, let's say May and June of 2008, was Cindy working with your wife?
Yes.
What was her work schedule?
Cindy was Monday through Friday. She could be leaving the house anytime between 7:30, 8 o'clock, and she would work till 5, sometimes 6 o'clock in the evening. Could be a little bit later, but generally that was her general work schedule, Monday through Friday.
How about you during that same period of time? What was your work schedule?
I was working an afternoon shift. I was working 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. Some people call it a second shift or an afternoon shift. I was working in security for a company out of Altamont Springs.
And were you working the same Monday through Friday schedule as Cindy or different?
No, I worked Sunday through Thursday. I was off on Fridays and Saturdays.
Now, during the periods of time when Casey, you believed, was at work, and you and Cindy were both at work, did she indicate to you who was watching Kaylee?
Well, there was a name that was brought up, and I don't think it was maybe a year prior to all this stuff occurring from us. I think it was probably just shortly after the first of the year that I can basically remember. A girl by name of Zanny's name was brought into it, or I guess the name came out later on as Zenaida. But that's what I was told. So her lady was taking care of Kaylee's. His name was Zanny.
That she was a babysitter when you and Cindy were not available.
Yes.
Now, I want to direct your attention, to June the 16th. Well, before I do that, could we have State's Exhibit A? Let me unpublish first. Do we have State's Exhibit A for the monitor for the witness? You recognize that picture?
That's Kaylee. It's my granddaughter, Kaylee.
This time, Your Honor, move into evidence State's Exhibit A for identification.
What says the defense? There being no objection, it be received in evidence as states numbered.
And I've published it to the jury. Do you know approximately when this was taken in terms of its proximity to the last time that you saw her?
This would have to be probably the early part of 2008. I'm just going to guess somewhere in that January to March, April time. I'm just taking a wild guess. Probably in that first quarter of 2008.
Does this fairly and accurately depict her appearance the last time you saw her in terms of general appearance and hair and all those kinds of things?
Generally, yes, it does. I mean, she could have her hair back from time to time. She could have glasses on. This is definitely Kaylee.
Now, take us to the morning of the 16th of June of 2008. It was a Monday morning. Tell us how that morning began for you.
With me waking up probably about the time that my wife had just left for work or going to work. Me getting up and having my normal cup of coffee. Just starting my day off a little bit early like I generally have. And having Kaylee come out and be able to spend some time with her.
Was that a normal course of events for you to have some morning time with Kaylee?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there would be times that after she'd be in Casey's room with her, she would come out and I'd take her first thing is to make sure that she would freshen herself up, brush her teeth, go use the facility around that she needed to do because she was starting to do that. And just, maybe wash her face off and just say, hey, this is how you want to go with JoJo and get some cereal and things. So that was the start of our day. That was pretty much not an everyday occurrence, but it was pretty regular.
And is that how it went on this particular morning?
Oh, absolutely. It was a great morning to just have some fun together. Her and I act silly and dance around and watch a video or whatever it might be. So color.
What was her favorite video? Did she have a favorite?
Oh my gosh. Lady and the Tramp was a fantastic video for her to watch. 101 Dalmatians that she called Dalmatians. There was just a lot of different things that just captivated her that she loved. I wish I could remember more right now, but those two, I know she watched quite frequently and enjoyed the most.
Now, this particular morning, do you recall when you first saw Casey?
Probably could have been about 9, 10 o'clock that morning, roughly right around there, her just getting up and getting her day started and just, I can't remember exactly what she did to get ready that day for work or something like that. I know it was to me, it was a lot of precious time for me to spend with Kaylee. So whatever Casey could have done that morning, been on the computer, whatever she was doing, I'd let her do her thing because when you got time with your grandchild, your own child sometimes takes a back seat to that.
Okay. Did anything Was it just a normal morning? Anything out of the ordinary occurred? Anything different than the usual mornings that you had?
Not really anything I can really say that really stuck out at all. I just know that I was just so thankful to have time with Kaylee, talking to Casey. I'm sure we had a conversation about work or something. I don't remember the specifics about that aspect of it, but I do know that it was, when people talk about a typical or routine morning before they went off to work, probably just one of those typical times that we all sort of just take for granted sometimes.
All right. So did there come a time when Kaylee and Casey left the house that day?
That is something that is forever in my mind, that I can't forget that day, because that's the last day that I saw Kaylee and Casey together. I was watching a specific program on TV. It's on the Food Channel on our one of our local cable TVs. And this gentleman who has this show called Drive Up Diners and Dives. I've just been amazed by his stuff. I just like him going around. But what's really just amazing is, I remember the time because it was a commercial break on TV, and I remember Kaylee coming out from Casey's room, dressed in a nice little pink top. She had her blue jeans, little shorts on, her white sandals, pink socks, her white sunglasses, her hair pulled back, and she had a little backpack on. And I said, "Where are you going?" And she says, "Going with mommy." And I said, "Oh, really?" I said, "Where are you going?" "I'm going to see Zanny." And I said, "Really? Great." You know, I'm just excited. I'm just knowing that she's happy, and I can see excitement in her. And within a few minutes, Casey comes out and, dressed. And she says, "Dad, we're going to work. I might be home late, or I'll let you guys know I might be staying over."
Staying over where?
She said, probably Zanny's house, because Zanny was, I guess, lived somewhere close by, or she didn't want to come home too late. And plus Kaylee would be in bed between 8:30, probably 9 o'clock. And I said, okay, it's something that happened every once in a while. It wasn't an occurrence that occurred all the time. It could be every once in a great while. She would stay with a friend or stay at Zanny's house or something like that. So
Up to this point in time, had you ever met Zanny?
no, I never met Zanny, never had any reason to, because I thought that's who
So
Kaylee was seeing.
you told us about the conversation with Kaylee and with Casey. What happened?
I went out, like generally like I did when I could see them when seeing Casey going off to work, and walking out with Kaylee and seeing Kaylee getting placed in the car, getting buckled in her car seat. Just a normal type stuff that I did. I'd blow her a kiss and say, "Jojo, I'll see you later." And she'd blow a kiss back and give Casey a hug. I just told her, drive safe, make sure you come home, not too late, just normal father, grandfather type things to do.
And did you see them leave in a vehicle?
They left in Casey's car, which is a Pontiac Sunfire.
That's a white Pontiac Sunfire.
Yes.
Did you ever see Kaylee again?
I've never seen Kaylee since June 16th. I haven't seen her since.
Now, Mr. Anthony, I need to ask you some questions about something else. Have you ever sexually molested your daughter, Casey Anthony?
No, sir.
Have you ever committed any sexually inappropriate act with or in the presence of your daughter, Casey Anthony?
No, sir.
Were you present in your home when Kaylee Anthony died?
No, and when I heard that today, it hurt really bad. Because if I would have known something would have happened to Kaylee, we wouldn't be here today.
Now, let me just ask you a couple of questions. When you were a law enforcement officer, were you trained in CPR?
Yes, sir.
Is there any extent that you would not have gone to save Kaylee's life?
I would have done everything possible, humanly possible, to save my granddaughter if what was stated prior would have happened. I would have done anything I would to save my granddaughter.
Did you dispose of the body of your granddaughter?
No, I did not.
Did you obtain duct tape from your shed or garage and place it over the nose and mouth of Kaylee Anthony?
No, I did not.
Did you have any role or any knowledge that Kaylee Marie Anthony died on June 16th, 2008, prior to recent revelations?
No, sir, I never had any duct tape. I never knew of anything that happened to Kaylee until our life started to unfold on July 15th, 2008, and when Kaylee was found on December 11th.
Your Honor, I have no further questions of the witness at this time. I would like to reserve the right to recall him for additional areas of testimony.
Cross-examination?
Mr. Anthony, when did you first find out your daughter was pregnant?
I believe it was sometime in May or June of 2005.
So she was 7 months pregnant when you first found out?
6, 7 months, it could have been right around that time, yes.
Do you recall going to a wedding that was Cindy's brother's wedding?
I went to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, but I did not attend the wedding.
Were you ever confronted by Rick, her brother, about Casey's pregnancy?
We had a brief discussion about it, but I told Rick it was none of his concern, none of his business. Whatever was going on with Casey would be handled through Cindy and I. We're there for Casey. You don't have to worry about it.
So is it your testimony today that you knew she was pregnant and you just didn't want him to know, or you didn't know she was pregnant at the time?
I didn't have an exact knowledge of the time that she was, when I found out that she was pregnant, I didn't have that exact knowledge at that time. Did I have a feeling? Possibly, yes, no. But no, I mean, I did see a change physically in Casey, but nothing that I know that Cindy and I weren't going to, help her with or attend to.
So the photograph that you saw here today, you don't believe?
Reference to an item that's not
Yes.
Yes.
Show you what is marked as Exhibit A.
Could I ask the counsel on display items to the jury that aren't in evidence?
Mr. Baez, if it's not in evidence, you may.
Is that a fair and accurate representation of Casey when you went to the wedding?
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, I did not attend the wedding. I was there, but I didn't go to the wedding that day. But as far as that being Casey and Cindy together, yes.
Judge, unless there's any objection, I'd like to move Defense Exhibit A into evidence.
Yes, Your Honor. Object, counsel moving items to evidence.
Sustain.
We'll call him back for that.
Cross the sidebar.
So we can all be clear, Mr. I'm
Just a
sorry.
second. You may proceed.
So we can all be clear, Mr. Anthony. Did you know your daughter was pregnant the day the photograph was taken?
Not exactly. I mean, I had a feeling that she was, but then again, like I've stated, until we knew for sure, until we could take her in for some kind of test or something like that.
So the answer is no?
Yeah, the answer is no. I mean, do I feel, does it look like it at that point, that photograph? Yeah, possibly.
I didn't ask you that. I just asked you, did you know if your daughter was pregnant the day that photograph was taken? Your answer is no?
No, not exactly no. No.
And you were a father of two.
Yes.
And you were a father of two when that photo was taken.
Yes.
And is it your idea that your daughter had a beer belly?
I think the term was considered at one point maybe with retaining water or something like that. It's possible. I mean, I didn't believe that my daughter could be going to have a child right at that time, but stuff happens. I mean,
Did anyone know that Casey was pregnant when that photograph was taken? Anyone outside?
Sustain.
Did you tell anyone at that time that Casey was pregnant?
no, not at that time. I did not know.
And when you were confronted with her pregnancy, you didn't want to talk about it, did you?
The first time I heard about Casey expecting a child is when Cindy and Casey came back to our house and we sat down on the couch together, or very close to the proximity of our couch in our house. And Casey and Cindy told me that they have something that they wanted to tell me about.
And you didn't have a clue that Casey was pregnant up until that moment.
Like I said, maybe a feeling or an intuition to a point, but when they told me, I was elated. I was excited.
You have no problems with your vision, do you, sir?
No, sir, I do not.
Okay. And was there an explanation given by your daughter lived with you, did she not?
Yes,
Every day.
every day.
And you saw her every day.
Pretty much so. I'd say probably 99% of the time I would see her, yes.
And 6 months prior to that photograph being taken, did you see her retaining water then?
Well, I really don't believe that you see a person or a woman. Each woman is made up differently. Each woman is going to show a pregnancy
My
differently.
question to you, sir, is 6 months prior to the photograph being taken, did you see your daughter retaining water then?
6 months? No, did not.
Have you, prior to Casey being pregnant, had you ever seen her retaining water prior to that?
When Casey was younger, I know she put on weight here and there when she was involved with athletics and things like that. Casey was a very athletic young lady growing up.
And when she was younger and putting on weight due to being in athletics, did the weight gain in her stomach or elsewhere?
Stomach, it could be in her hindsight or her butt. Some people would consider it could be in her shoulders, and she would work out and it would sort of go away. She was an avid runner.
So as she was an avid runner, she would gain a belly.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying through her activity, if she shouldn't be running as much or being as active, I think anyone is going to put on weight with inactivity.
Now, you mentioned that you were in the delivery room. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you assisted in the delivery?
No, I did not assist. I was there and observed my granddaughter being delivered.
And you didn't know who the father was up until that day?
No, I did not. Did not know that.
You didn't ask?
Not up to that point, I didn't, because when I found out that I was going to be a grandfather, Casey was expecting a child, and we went through the different tests, and we went.
My question to you, sir, is did you ask?
I think it was shortly thereafter, or right around, maybe just before she had delivery. I'm not sure of the exact time when I finally did ask. And I remember a name of Baker was brought up.
So the answer is yes, you did ask.
Yes.
Now, how soon after finding out that your only daughter is pregnant did you ask? Who's the father?
I don't know. It could have been, like I said, just prior to her delivering Kaylee, I'm
now
not, I'm
that-
not really sure. I don't have an exact timetable. You're asking me to be specific.
Just a second. Please let the witness finish answering the question before there's another question.
Yes, sir.
Continue.
Are you finished, sir?
Yes. Yes, I am.
Now, after you find out your daughter's going to be giving birth to your first grandchild, how long after did she give birth?
Well, if I just found out in May or June, we had, Kaylee was delivered in August. So it was over 2 to 3 months, you know, give or take a few weeks.
So in the entire 2 months, you never stopped your daughter and asked her, who is the father of this child?
Sustain.
You didn't ask her up until just before the child was born.
Sustain.
The day after, or the day you were confronted with this news, did you hold a party or anything like that?
No, just.
Give a baby shower?
Mr. Anthony, did you answer the question, sir?
The day that I found out that I was going to be a grandfather, when I first got the news of Casey's pregnancy, and it was only Cindy, Casey, and I at our house.
Now, you testified under direct examination that you thought your daughter was working. Did you not?
Yes.
Do you recall speaking to the FBI on July 31st of 2008? Excuse me, July 30th.
I had spoken to the FBI, the Sheriff's Department, numerous agents, a couple different agencies within a 2 or 3 week period.
And when you spoke to the FBI, did you make the statement, the irresponsibility, because I've known her,
Just a second.
Sure, sure.
Sustain, rephrase your question.
Yes, I'll rephrase the question, Judge. On July 30th of 2008, do you recall speaking to an agent, Scott Boland, and an agent McEllier?
If that was the date that you have written down, that's probably the date that I did. I can't be specific on a timetable because I don't have information in front of me, but I'm sure that probably was
Page
the date.
35, counsel, lines 1 through 4. Did you make the statement, the irresponsibility, because I've known her?
Just a second.
I don't believe it is, Judge. Lines 1 through 4.
When you give the line and page, give counsel an opportunity to find the line.
Yes, sir.
Okay, next question.
Did you make the statement, the irresponsibility, because I've known her, I've had a feeling for the last 2 years my daughter has not worked? Did you make that statement, Mr. Anthony?
I did. I did.
So was the statement you made under direct examination to this jury the truth, or was it to the FBI the truth?
Objection, improper cross-examination. I have further argument.
Approach.
Now, Mr. Anthony, you believed your daughter was working,
Yes, I believe Casey was working. Yes.
and every 2 weeks, did she come home with a paycheck?
No, I never really saw a paycheck from her because if she had a direct deposit or however she handled her finances, that was up to her.
What did you see your daughter spending her paycheck on?
Pardon me?
What did you see your daughter spending her paycheck on?
Well, hopefully for necessities for her daughter, gas for her car, insurance to insure that car. I mean, we were very, very good about helping Casey out in any way we possibly could if she was struggling financially or anything like that at all. I mean, we just wanted to make sure she was responsible for herself and her child.
And since you were wanting to find out that she was responsible for her child, when did you ask to meet the nanny?
I never asked to meet a nanny. I never did.
And did the nanny ever call the house?
Not that I am ever aware of. No.
Did you ever hear the nanny speaking to Casey on the phone?
No.
And did you ever see photographs of the nanny?
No.
Did you ever see anything written describing a phone number or anything like that? Any information about the nanny?
No, just whatever Casey told us about that she had someone that was helping take care of Kaylee when her mother and I weren't available to.
And every day she would get up, get dressed, and go to work and drop Kaylee off with the nanny.
That's what we were told she was doing. I mean, I had no reason really at too much of at any point not to disbelieve or believe my daughter. I mean, she was taking care of her child the best
Is that a
way
yes,
she
sir?
possibly could.
Is that a yes?
Well, I think you got an open-ended question there to a point, and I'm trying to answer the best way I possibly can. I mean, did I ever know that she was dropping
My question to you,
Kaylee
sir.
off every time, sir? That's what you're sort of asking me.
My
I don't
question
know.
to you-
I was hoping she was taking her to someone she described or told us was a nanny.
My question to you, sir, is did she get dressed and go to work and leave the child with a nanny, as far as you know,
As far as I know, yes.
for 2 years?
It might not have been an exact 2-year period. It could have been a little bit less than that. You know, I'm not really known how long that she might have been,
A year and a half.
possibly a year and a half, could have been a year. I'm not really sure.
So you don't know the different, you know, Kaylee was only 2.5,
Yes.
correct? So for most of her life, Casey dropped her off at a nanny that didn't exist.
Objection calls for speculation. Hearsay.
I'll rephrase it, Judge.
Sustain.
For 2 years, Casey dropped Kaylee off at a nanny that you never met.
Maybe not a whole 2 years. But to answer your question, yes, someone that I never met, someone I had never had a phone number for or had any indication to go to pick Kaylee up or anything like that.
For most of her life.
For probably maybe a half of her life. I'm just going in a roundabout way. But actually, to answer your question, Kaylee, when Kaylee came up missing, Kaylee was 2 years and 10 months, not 2.5. So that needs to be clarified, sir, with you.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this. Did you ever go to a sports authority to verify if Casey worked there?
Absolutely, I did. Yes.
And you found out she wasn't working there?
I found out that she was not employed there because I went to go surprise my daughter at lunch.
Just surprise her.
Yeah, to take my daughter to lunch just to see how she was doing.
And it
Yes.
had nothing to do with the fact that you suspected she was not working.
That was a twofold thing, yes, to see if she was there. And if she was there, great, terrific, I'll take her out to lunch.
So which was it? Was it because you wanted to surprise her for lunch, or you wanted to verify and see if she was lying to you?
Objection, argument.
Sustain.
Are you saying, sir, that both of those were the reasons? Is that what your testimony is?
One, hoping that she was working there. Secondly, if she was, I would take her out to lunch.
Now, the Sports Authority was not Universal Studios.
No, it was not, but I understood from Casey being an event planner, again, they do not run these events every single day. She can
My
only
question
be,
to you, sir, is Sports Authority,
I'm trying to explain.
Sustain. Listen, folks. Ask the question. Let there be a break between the answer, Mr. Anthony. The court reporter cannot take it down when both of you are talking. And if a witness is being over-responsive, counsel say the witness is being over-responsive. But do not interrupt a witness when the witness is attempting to answer the question. You may proceed.
Sports Authority is not the same as Universal Studios.
I will agree, yes.
Now, did you ever go to Universal Studios to inquire if your daughter was working?
No, I did not.
I want to discuss June 16th of 2008. Do you understand?
Yes,
You said you had breakfast with Kaylee.
yes.
Kaylee would often have breakfast with you.
Numerous times, yes, we'd have breakfast together. Yes,
Kaylee loved to swim,
yes.
and Kaylee would almost go swimming every day.
More, she would go as frequently as I know that Cindy would take her or Cece would take her. I rarely ever got in the pool with Kaylee unless Cindy and I were there together with her.
Kaylee would wake you up and say, "Jojo, swim. Jojo, swim."
She did a few times, yes.
And Kaylee could get out of the house relatively easily. Correct?
Relatively easy. I'll agree with you to that, yes.
Now, around June 16, 2008, you were having significant marital problems with Cindy, were you not?
Not on that particular day, no.
Let's go back for a little bit. Once Kaylee was born, you moved out, did you not?
Objection. Go.
Approach. You may proceed.
Now, when Kaylee was born, you moved out.
No.
Around that time. How many months before you moved out?
November, towards the end of November, first part of December 2005.
Sorry?
Towards the end of November, the beginning of December 2005.
So Kaylee would have been just a few weeks, a couple months old?
If I'm not mistaken, from August to December could only be almost 4 months.
I'm sorry?
From August to December could be almost 4 months or going into like a fifth month.
She was an infant when you moved out.
Yes, yes.
And Lee also moved out.
Lee was out on his own, trying to establish himself as a young man in the world, just trying to get out to be on his own, to have some responsibility.
And the issues with you moving out of the house was because Casey didn't want you around.
No,
that correct?
No, that wasn't the reason. That wasn't the reason.
What were the reasons for you moving out of the house?
Cindy and I had some financial difficulties. We were going through a really tough marital time, and that is a personal matter between her and I. That's not for the court or you to decide. I'm not on trial here for that.
This is when you told Cindy you had a gambling problem, correct?
I'd done some gambling on the internet. Yes, sir. That's well established, and I'm not going to deny that. I did it.
Now, did you tell the FBI that it wasn't a gambling problem, that you fell for some Nigerian bank scam?
There was a Nigerian bank scam and also some minor gambling that was done on it. So, I mean, I didn't lie to them. I told them the truth. I'm telling you the truth today.
So it's both. You were gambling and you fell for a Nigerian bank scam as well.
And I believe there's other people that have happened to. Yes, sir, it did. Yes.
And when you moved back, the tension between you and Casey continued.
Not really. There was some tension because I had moved out of the house, but it wasn't because of prior tension between Kaylee and I or Casey and I or anything like that. I mean, Cindy and I were going through a rough time. It happens. But as far as when I came back to the house, things were a lot better because I didn't just come back all of a sudden. It took months for me to gain some confidence back with Cindy and our marriage and stuff again. And it's something we're still working on today.
Now, going back to June 16th, after you had breakfast with Kaylee, what did Kaylee do then?
Oh, we watched a DVD. I'm almost positive we did. As far as which one, I can't remember specifically. But just spending time with her, coloring a coloring book was something we did pretty much an everyday occurrence.
And
Just spending time with her.
And it's your testimony that both Casey and Kaylee left the house at 12:50.
12:50 or shortly thereafter. Yes, sir. Positive. I know that for a fact.
And what time did you go to work at that day?
Shortly after 2 o'clock, 2:10, 2:15. I only had about a 10-minute drive to go to work, and I just lived a short distance. I mean, I worked a short distance away.
Now, you described to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what Kaylee was wearing that day,
Yes.
and that was a pink top?
Mhm.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
And jean shorts
Yes.
and white sunglasses
She had white sunglasses. Yes.
and a backpack with monkeys on it. Is that correct?
When I first was asked the question by the state, I said a backpack, but yeah, it did have what I believe was a monkey design on it. Yes.
What did Cindy wear that day?
I have no idea. I can't remember what Cindy wore that morning because Cindy would leave sometime between 7, 8 o'clock in the morning.
What
I mean,
Cindy wear-
she was very professional wearing. It could have been a pair of slacks and a top. I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
What did Cindy wear the next day?
Objection. Relevance.
Overrule as to that question.
What did Cindy wear the next day?
Again, it could have been slacks. It could have been a dress, a nice top. I don't know. I don't know what Cindy wore the next day.
Now, you weren't asked about what Kaylee was wearing for 1 month after she went missing, correct?
You're going to have to give me a little bit more of a question here for me to give you an.
Nobody asked you what Kaylee was wearing the last time you saw her until July 15th, 2008, 1 month after you last saw her.
That's correct because I didn't know that we would be having a missing child in our lives and be thrown into this. I didn't know anything about that, but I specifically know what she wore because that's the last time I saw her and that's what she had on.
And you had no idea when you saw her for the last time that would be the last time you saw her.
That's correct.
But yet, 1 month later, you still remember what she was wearing.
Objection. Argumentative. Asked and answered.
Sustain.
Did you remember 1 month later what Kaylee was wearing?
Objection. Asked and answered.
Sustain.
But you can't recall what your wife was wearing.
Objection. Asked and answered.
Sustain.
Do you remember what your wife was wearing last Tuesday?
Objection. Relevance.
Sustain.
Now, Mr. Anthony, you reported gas cans missing on the 24th of June, right?
Objection. Scope of direct. See scope of direct.
Is that a yes?
May I answer, Your Honor?
Yes, you can answer.
On June 24th of 2008, yes, I made a report to the Orange County Sheriff's Department about a break-in of a shed. Someone forcibly broke into a shed and removed gas cans.
And you did that because you were concerned that someone was burglarizing your shed.
Objection. See scope of direct.
Sustain.
Mr. Anthony, you knew Casey would take gas from the gas cans, did you not?
Objection. See the scope of direct.
Sustain.
Mr. Anthony, when you got the gas cans back from your daughter, how did that occur?
Objection. See the scope of direct.
Sustain.
Mr. Anthony, did you ever notice any duct tape on that gas can?
Objection. See the scope of direct. Could we approach?
Yes. You may continue.
Mr. Anthony, you testified today that Kaylee did not drown in the pool, correct?
That's correct.
And you said that when you heard this today, we would not be here if that were the case. Do you remember saying those words?
Yes, sir.
But you've heard this previously, have you not?
Okay. If I'm,
Or is the question is phrased?
yes,
Okay. Now, and you've heard this previously from several different areas, do you not? Did you not?
No, sir, just one area.
You've also heard from the prosecution that that's how Kaylee died. Did you not?
Objection.
You may. Objection sustained. Rephrase the question.
Mr. Anthony, you met yesterday with the prosecutors in this case, no?
Yes, for a brief period of time, I talked to Mr. Ashton, yes.
And you spoke to Mr. Ashton about the testimony here today.
Briefly, yes, we just discussed how I would be basically questioned by the state, by him. And there was
by the
there was no exact questions or anything like that. We just went over a generality of things. Yes, sir.
So you were prepped and
No, sir, I was
Ready to
not
go.
prepped. No, that's a misconception. I was not prepped. I was just told that I'd possibly, or it looked like I'd be the first person called, and that we would talk about my granddaughter. And we've done that.
how long did you meet with Mr. Ashton?
About an hour, roughly. I'm just roughly guessing.
And he told you the questions he was going to ask you.
No, sir, I already answered
Just
that.
a second.
Objection. The court has instruction on this issue.
He's answered the question, so objection overruled at this point.
When I asked the court to inform the jury of the instruction I'm referring to is this has been raised. I said this has been raised.
Now,
Just a second. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the court at an appropriate time in talking about judging the credibility of witnesses, the court will instruct you it is entirely proper for a witness to discuss their testimony with their attorneys prior to them coming into court, and that a witness should not be discredited by talking to an attorney. Instruction will read exactly. It is entirely proper for a lawyer to talk to a witness about the testimony the witness would give if called into the courtroom. The witness should not be discredited by talking to a lawyer about his or her testimony. You may continue.
you currently have a lawyer, do you not?
Yes, I do.
And within 24 hours of reporting Kaylee missing, you had a lawyer then by the name of Paul Kelly, did you not?
Objection. Relevance.
Overruled at this point.
Mr. Paul Kelly is a workers' comp attorney. I did seek his advice when this first occurred because I had no one else to turn to. And with him having legal knowledge, yes, I did, but I did not retain him. He was there just as, we brought him in as a friend to help us through the first hour, the first few days, whatever it's going to be. He was never, we'd never retained him. He was there just to counsel us through something, help us go in the right direction if we needed some kind of assistance.
You sought legal advice from him within 24 hours of calling law enforcement, did you not?
We had Mr. Kelly to our house the day that we first met you at our house. If I am pretty much on point with that.
My
Prior to
question is,
that, I never talked to Mr. Kelly.
you sought legal advice from Mr. Kelly. Is that a yes? I didn't ask you when,
Okay, I will answer that yes right now.
and that was within 24 hours of calling the police in this case.
It possibly could have been within a 24-hour period. I'm not sure. Okay, I'll say yes at this point.
And then after you mentioned he's not a criminal defense lawyer, then you retained a criminal defense lawyer subsequent to him, did you not?
Objection. Can we vote?
You may. Objection sustained. Next question.
Now, Mr. Anthony, you stated that you never had any duct tape. Is that correct?
I didn't say anything about duct tape.
You heard are you aware of the duct tape that's involved in this case?
I was made aware of it some time ago. I can't the exact nature of how I got to have knowledge of duct tape. I could have seen it on the internet or some discovery that was left out there. I'm not really sure.
You're not sure?
I'm not sure of the exact timeline. I mean, I understand that there was some duct tape that's part of this trial, part of this case.
You sat right over there while I gave my opening statement, did you not?
Yes, sir, I did.
So you know exactly what I'm referring to, do you not?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained, you can ask them about duct tape, but you can't ask them about your opening statement. Opening statement is not evidence. Next question.
You understand what the issue is, correct? You've seen the duct tape that we're referring to?
Yes,
Now, you told Mr. Ashton that you never had any duct tape. Were you in possession of that duct tape?
I don't remember that duct tape, whatever you're talking about, I remember that being exactly at my home. I mean, I've had tapes and stuff for many years. I mean, I've purchased duct tape at different places. I'm not.
Henkel
I've-
brand duct tape.
Counsel interrupted. Go away.
Sustained, Mr. Anthony, would you finish answering the question, please, sir?
That specific one, if that was at my house, then I guess that could be considered, yes, in my possession. I had knowledge of it.
And you did not put the duct tape on that gas can, correct?
Objection, so.
Sustained.
Were you in possession of that duct tape at the public supermarket, the command center, while you were passing out flyers of your missing granddaughter?
Objection, so.
Sustained.
Judge, may we approach?
No.
Mr. Anthony, when did you first find out that your car was towed?
Objection, so.
Overrule as to that question.
When I first found out about our Pontiac Sunfire had been towed, we had received a notice through the United States Postal Service. See, like a yellowish color tag, probably about the size of this. And it just had our name on it, the person who had sent it, and it was available to be picked up, at the local post office where we get our mail delivered from.
Did you understand my question, sir? My question was,
When I first got notice of it,
when did you first know or find out that your car was towed? What date?
I believe it was Sunday, the 13th of July. It was on a Sunday.
And you picked up the car on the 15th.
Objection, beyond the scope of your examination.
Overrule.
You picked up the car on the 15th.
Yes,
And when you picked up the car, did you advise anyone that your granddaughter was missing?
if I remember correctly, when I was walking around the car with the gentleman at the tow yard, and after realizing that I hadn't seen my granddaughter for nearly a month, and I really hadn't had a lot of contact with my daughter within that month, I was concerned when I seen the car being towed there, when I saw the car had been towed there.
Did you advise anyone that your granddaughter was missing when you picked up the car?
No, not at that time. I didn't say she was missing, no.
You didn't tell anyone that you hadn't seen your granddaughter?
What I said to the tow gentleman that was there, I don't remember his name off the top of my head. It was when we were walking around the back of the car. I didn't verbally say it out loud. I think I said it in a very soft tone, that I hope this is not my daughter or my granddaughter or both, because the way the car smelled.
And that smell was the smell of human decomposition.
Objection, seeks the scope.
Sustained.
After you smelled that smell, sir, what did you do?
Mr.
Yes, sir.
Baez.
Judge, until this witness is called for further testimony, I have no questions.
Any redirect in those areas?
Since Mr. Bias has raised it, tell us about the Sports Authority incident when you went to check on your daughter's work situation. What happened?
When I arrived at Sports Authority, I went inside and was met with a younger gentleman at one of the cashier areas. And I introduced myself. I said, I'm George Anthony. I'm Casey's father. Is Casey here? And the gentleman said, who's Casey? And I said, Casey Anthony. And I give her a brief description.
Sustained.
Your Honor, it's not for the truth of the matter asserted. It's simply to establish.
Mr. Baez, she didn't hear your objection.
If I
Go
may,
ahead.
it's not for the truth of the matter asserted, it's to establish the events that flowed from the statement. I would ask the court to reconsider.
Sustained.
Now, based upon what the gentleman told you, what did you do?
I got a little concerned and I asked to see the manager.
And did you have additional conversations with him?
I had
Without
additional-
telling me what they were, did you have additional conversations with him?
I had a more conversation with the manager and found out that my,
Don't tell me what they said. Now, after that conversation, what did you do?
knowing that Casey was not there, I got in my car and left.
At some point, did you address this issue with either your wife or your daughter or both?
First time I addressed it with my wife Cindy.
All right. And tell us about that conversation.
It was not the best conversation to have with Cindy at the time because of feeling that I was invading Casey's privacy to a point, following her. Just should have just left it go and not
Was your
been the detective of the house to look to go find what was going on.
Was your detective work well received by your wife?
No, it was not. It was not.
Did it create additional strife in a relationship that you were trying to repair?
Slightly, but we worked through it.
Did you address this with Casey as well?
I don't remember if I really addressed it immediately or if it was a short period of time after, or we just had a brief discussion. I don't think it was anything that was that bad. I
You just let it go.
just let it go.
Now, can you tell us when, in relation to the last time you saw Kaylee, this would have been the same year, the year before? Can you give us a general idea?
The last time I saw my granddaughter Kaylee was June 16, 2008.
I mean, the Sports Authority incident, when
Oh,
was
Sports
that?
Authority, I'm sorry.
Yeah, when
Sports
was that
Authority
in
incident, I believe was towards the end of 2007, could have been the early part of 2008. I'm not really sure of that generality of the time, but I know it wasn't all that long ago.
Now, let's talk about Mr. Kelly, the attorney that counsel asked you about. Had he done some work for you in the past?
He was my workers' comp attorney when I had a couple different injuries. He took care of that for me.
And how far back was that he worked as your attorney?
Overruled.
How far back was it that he had actually worked as your attorney?
He helped me two different occasions. One time was in, I believe it was 1995, 1996, and again in the early part of 2000.
Subsequent to that, had your relationship with Mr. Kelly changed from lawyer-client to something more personal?
Oh, we've been just great friends for nearly 20 years.
And did you and Cindy socialize with his family? Did your kids socialize together? Was it that kind of relationship?
We've been out to dinner a couple different occasions, been to his home and shared a meal at his home with him and his family.
And when you had him come to your house the day, I guess the day after you found out Kaylee was missing, was he there more as a friend or more as a legal advisor?
Overruled.
Friend, but also legal. I mean, it was a combination of both because Cindy and I didn't know where to turn, except to turn to someone that we considered our friend and had legal knowledge. So we were reaching out to just get some help.
How would you describe your emotional state on that day, the 16th of July, the day after everything was revealed and the day that, how were you feeling? What were your emotions then? No, I believe this is the date that counsel was referring to.
Overruled.
Just tell us that.
Very, very tired, very edgy, had nothing to eat or drink since probably earlier the day prior to that. You talk about running on fumes. I mean, you're going in so many different directions. It's hard just to sit down and just concentrate on one particular thing because your whole main objective is to find your missing granddaughter. That's whatever it took. I mean, to say how exactly I felt that day, I do know that we were just devastated.
No further questions.
Okay, may the witness stand down?
Subject to recall, Judge.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Anthony. You may resume your seat.